young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish swimming the other way, who nods at them and says, "Morning, boys. How's the water?" And the two young fish swim on for a bit, and then eventually one of them looks over at the other and goes, "What the hell is water?" And I think what I'm trying to propose here is that there's something that we overlook because we're so good at it. You see, you and I are animals. That's neither good nor bad, but you and I are all animals. And you and I are animals with a very special tool. No, it's not our smartphones. Our special tool is the mind. And the mind is a tool that makes other tools. Like toilet bowl plungers. And Korean barbecue. And international space stations. Oops. And philosophy. Can I back up? It's philosophy. It's a tool of the mind. Philosophy is not a theory, but an activity. And Rand said that man's mind is his basic tool of survival. Life is given to him, survival is not. His body is given to him, its sustenance is not. His mind is given to him, its content is not. To remain alive, he must act, and before he can act, he must know the nature and purpose of his action. He cannot obtain his food without knowledge of food and of the way to obtain it. He cannot dig a ditch or build a cyclotron without a knowledge of his aim and the means to achieve it. To remain alive, he must think. So this thinking, we've done a lot with this thing we call thinking, right? We've done some things. Like we have dominion over the other animals. Well, at least some of the time. We have dominion. And we've learned to master the elements. Well, at least some of the time. We've learned to master the elements. And civilization after civilization after civilization. Doesn't it really all just boil down to this? Us. Now, I guess we could all kind of agree that we all sleep and what that kind of means. And we can all agree that we wake up. We can agree what that means. But the survive part, to me, is a little bit different. I see it a little differently. A lot differently than I used to. Basically, I feel like everything that we do, everything that we feel, everything that we think, everything can be related to a survival continuum. And this is it. So as complex as we are today, our ancestors were not that complex. They had simple lives. They felt simple feelings. They had simple aims. And they would all fit into this continuum. On the left, you would have life, tribal acceptance, love, security. And you would start to move over to the right, the tribal anxiety, insecurity, fear. Banishment, which if you were banished from your tribe, that would ultimately lead to your death. So you say, even though we're advanced or whatever you want to call it, that we still relate on some level to this scale or this continuum. Now, it may not really look like this. This continuum may not look like this. It might look more like, music. You know, where every note is a piece of music, no matter what note you play. Or there's no wrong notes. But when I sit and think about this continuum, everything being related to survival, sometimes I wonder, like, what kind of curveball she had. She must have had a mean curveball. So even ridiculous things like emojis and extreme ironing and the Kardashians are all some way related to survival. And that's pretty much all I got to say about my presentation. And if you have questions or want to add anything, I'd love to hear what you guys think.
In your studies in psychology, have you come across much evolutionary psychology, which I understand also talks in terms of survival continuum, basically everything, art, politics, you name it, everything basically gets boiled down to having survival value. Talk about anything you've studied in that field.
Well, I haven't studied evolutionary psychology. I just studied demonic psychology, like clinical treatment, so I didn't study that. But you're right. Evolutionary psychology does say that everything's related to survival. I didn't want to include that because it was kind of obvious and it was more psychology related. Yeah.
Is there anything that you look at that doesn't fit as nicely with your continuum idea? Is there anything like pops out as kind of tough to push into it, or?
Not really, because the most bizarre things that you would think are meaningless, some way is connected to evolutionary psychology, like Sanjay just said. Every small thing that we do is some way related to our survival or our adaptation, which is survival. So you know, if you just think about it, if you just observe and you say, how is this related to survival? You just observe people. You know, I'm working in a homeless shelter right now for my internship, and every night at 6 o'clock we check in people. They have to be there by 6 o'clock. So we're checking in people, and my coworker, it was very cold this night, and my coworker had an electric heater, and she just went over there and she just warmed this very simple gesture to warm her hands. But I thought, that's survival.
Do you think, though, I mean, to kind of go along with what Dr. Jackson is saying, there comes a point where we want more than just survival? I mean, we want kind of to go beyond sort of just getting by and have kind of enjoyments that take us beyond that basic survival need.
Well, yeah, definitely. Some people are surviving a lot better than others. And they're enjoying it, you know, but it is, the definition, I think the definition of survival is a little too small, you know.
How can your idea of survival continuum account for animals who show self-destructive tendencies, tendencies towards addiction, tendencies towards suicide, things like that?
I would think that that would fall into like a maladaptive coping mechanism. That animal was, thought that it was doing what it needed to do to, you know, a lot of, like you're talking about like drugs or addiction. A lot of people do drugs and addiction because that's the easiest way for them to cope with their feelings or what's going on around them. And so in a way it does work, you know, for them, keeps them going until they overdose.
Yeah.
You know.
So maybe like a misunderstanding of what they need to survive or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it does work, it does help them. And that sounds strange, but.
No, I totally understand
Yeah,
what you're
it does
saying.
help them. But it's a maladaptive coping mechanism,
So, was there something? I guess kind of springboarding off that question, what about somebody who like actually knowingly, consciously gives their life for a cause? Does
that's a
that,
good one.
how does that fit? I mean, I'm sure there's some sort of like, maybe there's some sort of bit of tribal acceptance going on in there, you know, is that kind of where your head would go to?
Well, morality is really love that goes beyond yourself. You know, love for your society. So like sacrificing yourself or say in war for your comrades or dying for a cause would fall into your idea of survival would be that, you know, I'm doing this so that we all survive.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And that's where morality comes in.
Yes, could any note on the survival continue to be skipped as we get to a point where we evolve to no longer need a particular note and skip it, or no?
I don't know, you're talking about millions of years
So
of
all
us
these are-
being this way. You're talking about, I mean, to me, it's kind of like, are we ever gonna not need to drink water? I
Could
mean,
a
that would be a
mindset-
long time.
Could a mindset of the individual, take the individual to disregard a particular continuum?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. When you look at people like sociopaths, you know, they're doing things because they know that they, on the surface, they need to look like they care. But underneath, they don't care at all. So yeah, it is up to the mindset, partially up to the mindset of the individual. Yeah, in that situation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
These great ideas. A lot of philosophers have said that everything aims towards the good, beginning with Plato, Aristotle, through the medieval thinkers and so on. And you're saying everything aims at survival, so then survival is the good, which makes this similar to the theories that have been advanced for a long time about this, right? So-
I would personally say that survival is related to the good. Yes, I didn't put that on here, but I personally think that survival is good. Survival of the species is good, and there's some inherent goodness in life.
It sounds
Yeah.
like what you're saying, your survival is the good for which all things aim.
Well, that's not what I said in the continuum, but yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
So, well, all of those things are ultimately grounded in the need to survive.
Yes.
So, it becomes a question then of what is the good?
Mhm.
What about smelling a flower, listening to music, and being just? What if Aristotle were to be brought back to life today and say, people really just want to be happy, and they don't want to survive. Survival is a prerequisite for happiness.
Mhm.
But everything we do is for being happy, not for surviving. How would you respond to him?
Well, you have to have survival first, you know.
And he agrees with that. He says you have to have a
Yeah.
certain amount of money, a certain education, and so on and so forth.
I think that feelings like happiness and the happiness or the joy that you get from smelling a flower or from listening to music, those feelings and emotions serve us, to draw us towards things that are good for us. You know, kind of like the way you're drawn towards water. So I think that those feelings, those instincts, even though now we don't use them for survival instincts, in some way they were a benefit to us for our survival. You know, smelling flowers that smell good, eating foods that smell good, tastes good. If it tastes bad, spit it out. Don't eat that, you know. I kind of feel like our senses are cultivated to keep us safe. So we don't necessarily use them all the time for survival, of course. We can go to the drive-thru and get a burger. You know, we don't, not much effort put into that. But what was that last part of your question?
I guess I was gonna ask is, would you say there's anything that's good for its own sake? In other words, not for the rewards that carries survival, for instance, but just something that's good in itself.
I think life is good. Life is good in itself. Being alive. Having children, you know, that. I think when I use the word survival, some people might be thinking survival television shows and stuff like that. I'm talking about passing on your genes, you know, having a lineage, you know, things like that. That's survival. That's good, yes. Living on, continuing on is good. You know, it's odd. He's talking about what is good. I met a lady who actually, her job is, she's a nurse, and her job is to deliver babies every day. That's what she does, all day long, just deliver babies. She's there in the delivery room when they're born. And I said, what is that like? She said, man, it is the most amazing job ever. When that baby comes out, I feel it. It's amazing. Being around that new life. There's nothing else like it. And I could feel, just from proxy, feel what she was talking about. So I think that is the good. That's the inherent goodness that you're talking about, that Aristotle talked about.
If you're looking for, you said you're looking for more research stuff in this, there's a really long tradition that says simply to be is the good. And we could talk about it some other time if you ever want to. But it's a long philosophical tradition that's gone on for thousands of years. The value of just being and being tied up with goodness.
You being a psychologist major, what do you think about as far as shame as being part of that survival continuum? Because you know they only say humans have that shame, animals don't have shame. So
Yeah.
how does that help us survive? Shame does, and then like we don't even get it when we're first born. Some psychologists think we only get it till like about 5 or 6, then we start experiencing, you know, shamefulness.
Yeah, shame is very interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, we get shamed, and then we shame ourselves after we're shamed. You know, so unconsciously we shame ourselves after we're taught shame, and we shame other people unconsciously. I think shame is a social construct. I think that we can actually live without shame, but I didn't really put shame on here. I mean, I could have put a lot of things on here. I tried to keep it simple. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I don't know. I'm actually a psychology major, so I was wondering because it is an emotion. I guess you.
Emotion.
Yeah.
There's a lot of emotions I didn't put on here.
Yeah.
Because, yeah. I feel like millions of years ago we didn't have so many different emotions.
Kind of going back to our class with Dr. Jackson, with is virtues can be taught, or is it something that we're born with? But it seems like that is taught. Shame to be shameful. Yeah.
I feel like shame is taught, and more cultures have different cultures have more shame than others. Yeah. So.
Another suggestion to along the lines of Dr. Hall, if you're interested, and it strikes me in a kind of odd way maybe, that what you have to say might actually help humanize Nietzsche. He kind of has this idea of life is really like the thing, right? And you just go for it. You don't worry, his sort of thing comes in where you might humanize a little bit. You don't worry really about other people so much, right? But the whole point is just to grow and express and flourish and be, and you know, so it's a real activist kind of being. But the problem is it looks like it's tough to find a kind of ethic in Nietzsche, or kind of concern for others. You know, that you kind of suggest is, this would be like a human kind of thing, kind of constant sort of natural instinct to want to help others. That was one question I had, is morality a function of this natural instinct that we have to want to help others? We're just like born that way, right? It's in our biology, you know, to sort of help others, and particularly help our family and stuff.
You're asking me?
Well, that would be it sounds like that's where you said morality comes from that. That would be Nietzsche kind of thing to do with morality itself as a social construct, right? Or whether there might be a moral instinct, something other than just the natural instinct. Well, you have to answer that. Mainly, I want to suggest that you might want to take a look at Nietzsche if you're interested in seeing someone who's like, you know, full out, sort of go for it kind of. But
I mean, I don't know the answer to that right now, but I don't know how many people in here, if they saw a baby sitting on a park bench that was abandoned, how many people would just walk by and leave that baby sitting there crying. I think a lot of us would pick up the baby and call 911, you know? I think that, to me, that's a natural, I would feel a natural instinct to do something to help that baby, you know? Or like somebody who's in a burning car, you know, when people say other people that they don't know. I think instinct just kicks in, and people do these things, you know. And then when you interview these people, they say, I wasn't thinking anything. I just acted, you know. And if I had to do it all over again, I would do it.
So you would agree that like survival, it has this kind of element that goes beyond the individual's selfish.
Absolutely.
We can think of survival in terms of the well-being of the whole group.
Absolutely. I mean, that's how we kind of got here, is tribal, working together, communicating, collaborating, all that's part of surviving as a tribe. You know, we're not able to survive on their own like they are now so much.
And maybe now we need to think of like everyone as part of our tribe.
We would do a lot better if we did.
Good question.
I'm just curious what you would make of, say, individuals that climb Everest, because it'd be one thing if there were a pot of gold, benefit the self by climbing Everest, or a cure for cancer, benefit all of society. There's neither. But I wouldn't probably classify it as self-destructive either. So where does that come from? I guess my first thought is, Richard Dawkins suggests there's this sort of risk-taking gene that doesn't belong to necessarily everybody in a population, but certain types. And there's sort of these pioneering individuals that, and it's almost like, I guess I'm sort of answering my question in a way that we've kind of run out of new horizons and obstacles. So now, what's the famous line, why do you climb the mountain? Well, it's because it's there. Is that a holdover, do you think, or what's the psychologist behind that? I mean, lots of people die climbing Everest. For what?
And some people die just by actually tripping and falling off Stone Mountain, right? They had no intention of going that far. Yeah, I think you're right. There are some individuals that have different genes that are predisposed to have to risk-taking behaviors, adrenaline junkies, base jumpers. I've done a few things that could fall into that category, and I realized, hey, I could kill myself if I kept doing this. So, yeah, I think that the ability to climb a mountain is definitely evolutionary, you know, because we've evolved to be able to do
along with that, you could say that it is good for the species to take risks, and, I mean, that people kind of perpetuating that tendency, that risk-taking tendency, they wind up doing something that benefits maybe all of humanity, perhaps.
Absolutely. There's benefits to risk taking. I mean, we wouldn't be here if explorers didn't come here and find this continent. It took a lot of guts to do that, you know.
Quick question, it's kind of obvious, but is God in the picture, or any transcendent entity or transcendent? And doesn't have to be, I mean, I'm just, you know. Seems to be, you know, certainly just a naturalism, but, so I just want to ask, be clear about how. What do you think? Is there a transcendence fit in here at all, anywhere, or is it?
I think God is such a muddy subject, I didn't really include it in the whole
Well,
thing,
yeah.
but, I mean, I would say that, God would be some kind of life-giving force that you would be grateful and pay gratitude towards, if there was a God in all of this. Yeah.
Would you also say that depending on the individual who's going through the continuum, their behaviors may differ, and you know, if they picture God, how they may worship, how they may have the organized system of living already. Do you think that would determine some of their actions in the continuum, such as fear and insecurity and tribal acceptance, you know, which behaviors they should really be modeling themselves and which behaviors they should be doing? Because, you know, a Buddhist might say that I'm not really supposed to do or carry out certain actions because it may not really align with, you know, my caste or my village or customs that I already have. And so I feel sometimes maybe it can slow down even the evolutionary process just because people may not be willing to take certain risks. And you know, it may even be because of good intention, but as you know, different individuals will do different things and stop at different places before achieving it.
Well, yeah, that would depend on the tribe, right? And they're being raised in that tribe, whether it's a Buddhist society or a Muslim society or some tribe in the rainforest. There's always customs, right? You know, your parents are always going to tell you what's important to you until you're old enough to decide for yourself. So, yeah, it would vary.
So is it because social structures change that it's not up there? Because I would say social structures are, well, we see it as kind of important as a means of surviving as a group, but I don't really see that it's relevantly up there.
Well, that would be like a part of tribal acceptance.
Oh.
Social structure would fit with that.
Oh, okay.
Because the tribe is a social structure. Yeah, I just try to make it as simple as possible. Otherwise, there's a million bubbles up there. You know?
Okay, so tribal acceptance will just fall under the more broader aspect of social acceptance.
Yes.
Okay.
You have a question?
Yeah, seems like the question is the question behind the question. So if we take it that what we're here for is to survive, then the next question is, why? And so Dr. Jackson mentioned Nietzsche, who says there's this will to overcome that governs all life, because life exists at the cost of life. Philosophers, some Christian and some Platonic philosophers would say that we're all the divine experiencing itself in various manifestations. Thomas Aquinas would say that God gave us a will to be as part of his method of governing the universe. So, or is it just purely evolutionary, lucky crapshoot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be another question to ask. What accounts for that drive? Why is that what governs? If it does, in fact, govern all things, if that's the good, why is it good?
Wow.
When you get that, let us know.
Well, I don't know that, okay, but I mean, if you want my opinion,
Yeah, of course.
I would say that, this planet is capable of life, and it's an opportunity for life to exist. And that's it. Can't really say why, or how, or who, or what, but here's a planet. Isn't this interesting? This is an interesting planet. There could be life on this planet. You have all these other planets so far, we haven't found another one yet. One day we probably will, but yeah.
There's actually a sort of current new sort of piece of evidence you might use for what you're saying about life being sort of preeminent value. Is that it looks like we're gearing up in various ways to travel to other planets. And, you know, why that, right? I mean, that's such a crazy kind of thing. We want to put someone on Mars, and Elon Musk and some other people, Jeff Bezos at Amazon, are kind of, you know, getting into the idea of space flight. With the idea is that you're gonna have to leave this planet sometime, or, you know, for ecological reasons, or way down the road, the sun begins to burn too hotly, and so anyway, just a quick note is that that seems to be one of those things really out there, and why do you do it? And it seems to be so the species can survive. That doesn't get to the sort of fundamental question that I was talking about. It's what, and that's the drive to begin with, right? The drive to keep going. You know, what's
Well, I
behind
think
that?
I think the drive to keep going is in our genes. That's the drive. But how we got here, what?
How we got there in the genes, that's kind of the.
Yeah, I mean, I could go on forever about conspiracies, and I don't want to take you guys
All right,
to
we
outer space.
should probably wrap it up, 'cause we got another one coming up soon. Somebody got a question?
What about like genetic anomalies, like psychopaths and sociopaths? How do they fit into? Because they obviously don't need some of these circles. So
Well, way millions of years ago, those people would probably not be in the tribe.
yeah,
They would be
banished.
banished,
Yeah.
which is death. You know, so